Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Okay, we have a couple of different things today. I'd asked Dr. Starcher to add some financial efficiency analysis on the agenda today. As we look at going forward here, I apologize I missed your last meeting there, but one of the things we're going to have to look at and keep looking at is the financial cost and our present financial status. So she got with Darren, they got some stuff together that maybe she can review with us, okay? Thank you.
Oh, it's an open meeting. Oh, yeah, we're not in executive session.
We're in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of thing.
So, board members, Mr. Rednick, I believe, had emailed you, and then you should have a copy of the financial analysis in your packet. It's 3 pages in length. Now, I will tell you, multiple iterations of this have come from the department. Just some changes. They released it mid to late July, and then there were some issues they needed to correct. So the one before you is the final version as of now. We are not anticipating any changes. I'm just letting you know. I think this is our third receipt of it. So the first page, you'll see it starts with our unrestricted fund balance. And then we move down, it talks about our excess levy, with 100% excess levy, we know that. And then our projected excess levy gross tax collections. Those are projected tax collections. We are actually taking in a little more than that. You'll see it says projected excess levy. So I'll give you an example. Projected for FY26 was about 27 million. Budgeted was 29.4. So we are taking in a little more than what is projected that the State Department shows there. But again, we are taking in a little more in than what is said there. And then you can see our per pupil expenditures. Those per pupil expenditures are available when you visit the State Department website and look at the balance scorecard. That site, the department tells us what the per pupil expenditures are. So you can see our per pupil expenditures have increased slightly over the last 4 years.
Okay, why? What is the increase due to? Is it due to the fact that we have more special education students and they cost more?
I think that could be. I think that could be part of it, but obviously the services we're providing in terms of staffing, we have less students and more cost. So the cost per student is naturally going to be.
You have a classroom with 24 kids in there and a teacher. You have a classroom of 16.
Correct.
The same.
Correct.
Per pupil is going to be more.
So that
smaller classes, not the full.
You can see that per pupil expenditure is increasing. And again, this is available to the public, this per pupil expenditure data. If you visit the balance scorecard website, that main page, Raleigh County's main page, it'll have the per pupil expenditure per year. And then our revenues. So those come from, what the audited annual financial statements that Darren presents to you each year. So that's that first page. And so then we'll go on to the second page. This is our staffing. And I wanted to spend just a little bit of time. I want to say this. I'm hopeful that this fall we can have a personnel work session. I'm thinking it would be good to get through what will be proposed closure hearings early in the fall. And then I'd like to have a personnel work session later in the fall before we actually head into personnel season, if that works for the board. So we'll get into, if we can do that, we'll get into the staffing a little deeper at that point. But I just wanted to show you where we are. Again, this is based on what the state sees. Yes, sir.
If my math is correct, and I look at per pupil expenditure,
Yes, sir.
I see a difference between 24 and 25 of 2,415. Now, if I take that 2,415, divide it by 14,000 5,269. My quick math gets a 14% increase in per pupil
Sounds about
expenditure.
right. Mhm.
That is dramatic.
It is.
And I'm curious if I can get a rationale with precision as to why that went up 14%. What's your, if we have any thinking on that? Sure. I mean, it's just a matter of looking at the numbers. What generated that number?
I can't tell you with precision that response, but I really believe if you look at our staffing in excess of the funding formula increasing and our student population decreasing, mathematically, it only seems to be correct that the amount of the staffing is costing us more per student because we have increased staffing over the formula and less students enrolled.
Well,
Does that make sense? How I'm saying that?
Made a very valid point. As we lose students, we're not losing special ed students. No special ed students are taking home. No special ed students are doing homeschool. Those students are still in our population. We know that costs more for those students than regular students.
Absolutely.
So the cost, percentage wise, stuff on student is naturally going to increase.
As an example,
I think
Oh,
too,
sorry.
and Ron, correct me, and I'm trying to interpret what you said, okay? I think what you're saying is, or maybe what I'm thinking, exactly what goes into the expenditure total.
Well,
Of course, staffing goes into it, but are you saying what all configured into that?
if
So what
if
other costs besides staffing is what?
well,
you're saying?
the assumption is that an increase in staffing increased the expenses and a decrease in enrollment decreased the funding.
Mhm, mhm.
And what I would be curious to know is what exactly was the staff increase? And what was the dollar equivalent of that staff increase? What number exactly was the student population decrease? And is that assumption supported by the data? I suspect it is. I'm like, as you are, that would be my thinking. And if the number were smaller than 14%, I would be saying, well, okay, that makes sense. But a 14% increase in per pupil expenditure is dramatic. Even inflation, the Fed has an inflation target of 2%.
We've been doing
This is 7 times the target.
Yeah.
And I would be intrigued to know. Let me say this right. I want to see the exact numbers that caused that.
So what I can do is I can reach out to Mr. Cummings at the State Department of Education and ask him exactly what the State Department is using to calculate the per pupil expenditure as they report on their website.
I got you.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
I can-
because, I don't know the answer.
So we don't internally generate this number.
No, this comes from the department. They do it for all 55 counties.
Mhm.
So Mr. Butcher and I have had multiple conversations with the department about this report to obtain clarification on how this was derived or how that was derived. I'll be honest, I didn't ask about that. I know it's reported on the State Department website with the balanced scorecard, but I can certainly reach out to Mr. Cummings and ask what exactly is going into that number.
Mhm.
It'd be interesting just to find out what all are they looking at
I
as
will-
an expenditure?
I will do
Are
that.
they looking at everything?
Yeah,
Or
I will
just-
do that.
It would almost,
I don't know.
it exceeds my perception of it's just too dramatic a change. It's like a dramatic drop in test scores or something like that. Something significant happened there. And what exactly is that significant event that occurred? We're making an assumption. We think that it is correct, but they have put the inputs in. What inputs did you put in, and
Sure.
what inputs were different from the inputs you put in before?
Well, I don't think the type of input is different
You don't
from
think
year
the
to year.
methodology has
No,
changed?
I don't believe the methodology has changed because as we get further into this, I can explain. I mean, I have an example
Surely.
of why I don't believe the methodology has changed. But the information coming out has changed, yes. But I'll find out for sure from
Okay,
Mr.
thank
Cummings,
you.
okay?
Okay.
So on page 2, you'll see the 5-year trend. Now, we'll just walk down through this. Under professional personnel, we'll see our number of professional educators and our school support personnel, which that would be like our counselors, our nurses, our social workers. That's the SSP. So you can see based on the data they have, and I need to remind everybody, they don't know what we did in personnel season. Okay, so this is the data that they had from last year. Based on the data, they saw these, if you go across from 22 to 26, those are the number of professional educators and school support personnel allowed based on our enrollment. Oh, there's Mr. Butcher.
One significant item in 25 that's driving.
Since this is live stream, we're gonna have to do it on mic so people can, okay?
So one significant number in 25 that's driving that per pupil is 25 was a technology refresh year. So that's over $9 million of technology costs. So that's a big component of that increase in per pupil expenditures.
I still think it's worthwhile to find out exactly
Yeah,
what
and I
Mr.
will.
Cummings is putting into that.
But understand there's also been a push in recent years to do better job of allocating all costs back to the school level. Whereas some costs were allocated to district level in prior years. We've also done a lot better job of actually allocating those costs out better. But I'll get you more information. I just wanted you to know that a large driver of that is the technology replacement.
So you can see our professional educators and school support personnel allowed under state aid funding. You can just monitor that or see that it's been decreasing. Now, one thing that I think just be aware of is over the last few years, we've had to also add the first grade, second grade, and third grade level ECATs. So as much as like take FY24, for instance, at 848, it was an increase over the previous year. We had to start adding the grade level ECATs. So the staffing that we were, that showed kind of a false increase, if you will, to me. I understand why there was an increase, but the state added another type of position onto us. So it helped with that increase. So then you can see in the second row what we actually employ. So you can see in FY26, we were about 64 positions over the state funding formula. Those positions would have been eligible for state aid funding, but were operating higher than what we're entitled to. What I mean by that is like Mr. Butcher's position isn't funded.
Right.
Transportation, director of transportation, that's not funded. So those positions don't fall into that 64.45. These are positions that had we been operating at zero,
Right.
all of those positions could have been
Another teacher
funded.
Position that we just don't get credit for. We have too many.
Correct. Or another counseling position, another administrator position. Yeah. Okay. So 64.45, you can see we've been increasing over that 5-year period. Now, again, we took that drop in 7.84. And I should go back. I mentioned the ECATs there. The ECATs aren't included up here. That's my fault. They're service. I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself. But you can see the, where we are with the increase. Now, the next section, number of professionals employed from local funds. You can see we've had we reached a high 36.28 in 24, and we've lost almost 7 positions. Those are the positions that that aren't eligible for state aid funding. Again, like Mr. Butcher, Mr. Wisnett at purchasing, Mr. Daniel at maintenance. Those are examples of positions that aren't eligible for state aid. Director of Child Nutrition, things of that nature. Now, I believe, although I could be wrong, but I believe this is new. Extended professional contracts from local funds. That's an important line item. That line consists of all of our extra days. So any days above 200 for professionals. Basically, those are all totaled, divided by 200. And that tells us we have 11.63 positions, if you will, that are days. Now, I want to make sure you know, Mr. Cummings' office backed out any days funded through state and federal grants in that number. One of the iterations of this document showed 14 point something, but that included the contracts that were state and federal funded extra days. So we're at 11.63. That would include professionals in this office or at the district level that have extended contracts. That's our principals with their extra days, various specialists, and so forth. So when you sum all that, the total number of professionals that are funded by the county board for FY26, or that were funded, 105.48. So again, you can see the trend data. We are increasing there. Now the service personnel, that's where the ECATs were. I won't go through all that again, but we did have to start adding the first, second, and third grade level ECATs. Something you can, bless you, you can see that last year we were eligible for 560.9 service personnel. We actually employed 631 for a total of 70.435. And then that makes our total 175,914 that were overstaffed based on the numbers reported last year. Now, obviously, we went through personnel season, made some reductions. And then Mr. Butcher and I worked together when we were working on budget. We estimated, just based on the last few years' trend data, a loss of 190 students. It took us to around 9,900 figure for student enrollment. If that is the case, that's what we see. These numbers before you, adjusted for what you approved for reduction during personnel season, and then that 190 student loss, we have identified or projected that we would be over 55 professionals that are state aid eligible professionals and 122 service. That's what we project. But again, that's based on our cuts last year and a loss of 190 students. Based on our trend data, we believed it was better to share a budget with you that accounted for another decline. I mean, we're hoping we don't have it, but from a fiscal standpoint, we believed it was best to identify a reduction.
And you said 122
service. That's what we're projecting, but that's based on a loss of 190 students and 55 professionals.
I don't know how we can cut that anymore.
I know that's what I say. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to Mr. Butcher's office and said, I don't know how we're going to do it, but we have to do it. I mean, we can't afford it. And that's the next page. If you go on to the next page, this gives you more of the financial impact of the last 5 years. I am going to have you write some numbers in that I think will be good for this board. First of all, Mr. Cummings' office has not issued I wrote this down, an adjustment, but when you look at personnel funding identified in excess levy costs, so towards the bottom of that top section, personnel funding identified in excess levy call, and you'll see in 22, 23, and 24, the number 14,777,000. See that number, those 3 years? They've actually told us, but we don't have a new document, that number is truly 11,967,239
For 24?
for 22, 23, and 24. See how that number is all the same?
Same one, okay.
Yeah, and I'm going to explain that here in a minute. But it's actually 11,967,239 for all 3 years. Now, that number, what Mr. Cummings' office looks at is pieces of our excess levy or lines in our excess levy that support personnel. And that number, when the state is reporting on it in this chart, they're not including the part of our excess levy that is allocated for substitutes or the personal leave incentive. Okay. So when they back that out, the last levy, when they back that out, it's only 11,967,000. And in our current excess levy, without the substitute costs and without the personal leave incentive, the value is correct there at 12,668,000. Okay. So just as a frame of reference, for 25 and 26, if the substitute cost were included and if the personal leave incentive was included, we would, through our excess levy as written, we would have had 15,683,925. That's what's written in the levy cost. So let me just tell you what those are. The baseline that the state says contributes to the excess levy for our personal costs, that includes our salary support, fixed cost, staffing support, and group insurance. Those are the 4 items on our excess levy that the state is saying go towards personnel. That's how they get that number.
How about in our levy, don't we have a comment, we pay for social workers and stuff like that? That doesn't count on this?
These are the numbers they're using based on
support personnel, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think I don't know for certain, but because it's not specifically stated as personnel, like that one is under the attendance piece, the line that deals with attendance. So I'm assuming that they're not pulling that from that line item. I can double check, but I do know in working with Mr. Butcher, it's salary support, fixed cost, staffing support, and group insurance that the state is counting for that item, and that they're not including our sub cost and personal leave incentive. Now, I have 4 numbers I want you to write down. See how the state tells us our identified funding shortfall for each of the 5 years? 2.3 million to 3.9 to 1.9 to 10.2 to 10.9. You see that?
Get one more time.
Okay, that line, it says 2.3, then 3.9.
Very bottom line.
1.9. Okay, right under those numbers, I'd like for you to write these numbers. In 22, write $13,496,446. Okay. In under 23, write this number, $12,539,975. Under 24, write $13,037,000. Hold on. I might have missed. I can't tell.
We don't do anything with thousands, so go ahead.
I think it's 87, but $13,087,953. And then the last line, under 25, write 18,164,412. The value for FY26 is not available yet. This is really important for you to know these numbers.
And those numbers are?
These numbers are what we actually, through increased tax collections, this is what we actually spent to pay for our personnel out of excess levy tax collections.
So instead of being the 10 million, 200 something, that was 18 million something there.
Well, those are negatives. So identified
Yeah,
funding
negative
shortfall,
values.
that's what the State Department is saying. We had a shortfall of funding.
Mhm.
Okay. What I am telling you is the state looks at our excess levy and says, this is how much you have in the excess levy to support staffing. But through our excess levy and increases in our tax collections,
Gotcha.
we actually spent this much each year towards staffing. What I believe is really important for all of us to know is in FY25, we jumped $5 million just to pay for personnel.
Yeah.
So back
45% there.
and that's not including FY26.
Yeah.
We cannot continue on that path.
No. No.
So I wanted you to see this.
The excess levy won't support it.
That is correct, Dr.
Because
Hitchens.
some of that money is earmarked and has to go, you only have a certain amount of discretionary. At some point, you're not gonna have that amount of money in there
That is correct.
because you have to spend the other the way it's specified.
Yes. So we just cannot, I know to Ms. Smith's point, like cutting staff, how do you do it? We have to figure out the chart,
We don't.
the path forward.
If we don't, Harrison County can take, the state will.
We can't do this year after year. We won't be able to pay for anything else. We'll just be dumping all of our resources into staffing. So I wanted you to have those numbers. That's just an overall review of this document that the State Department provides. I didn't want you not to have it, and I wanted you to have a little more detail behind it.
If we go up another 5 million, we're at 23 million.
I know,
That's the 23 million.
I understand.
Yeah, exactly. It's the thing. It's it. I'm
So
saying-
we are at a crossroads. I mean, we, as a board, as a district, we have to make some very difficult decisions, whatever those decisions may be. I'm sure they won't be easy,
Yeah.
but we're going to
Well,
have to
when we have
make,
to- when I think Mr. Butcher told us this year, and reflects that, as Charlotte just made a good point there. The only way you could do that, if you could one, was go into your reserves. And then you're really in trouble.
and then
But
this,
I
the
mean, that's
state
what-
is really watching when you start dipping into
I know,
your
but that's what
reserves.
happened. Other counties say, well, we got money in reserves. When you start taking money out of your reserves, you don't have any money come back. It's like taking all the money out of your savings account. Pretty soon, there's nothing left.
Exactly. So I wanted you to have this. This is out.
I'd be interested if you get the information Mr. Cantley requested. I guess be valid stuff too, that
Sure.
we'll look at that and, what the details are, where actually, what are they basing their information on?
Right, and that doesn't get at this
No,
issue. It's
no.
a step,
And
that's
that doesn't
separate,
affect what
but
for us, maybe it's the information interesting in what they're doing, because when it comes down to the end of it, the back page is what tells you everything.
sure. And a couple other things I wanted to share with you. One iteration, not saying you're going to see the first report and then the second, but one report of this, I think it was iteration number 2, showed us at 9.1 instead of where this says 10.9 here, it said 9.1. Well, then it jumped to 10.9. The reason for that is back to the positions, the excess positions, they or the extended year days, they they went in and actually calculated. They didn't use the average teacher salary for calculating the extended year contracts. They used actual salaries and gave us a better number there. And then, so that was one change that I wanted to tell you about. And then I left off, we haven't talked about the enrollment at the bottom there, but the last page towards the bottom, you'll see the enrollment data. You can see the first line there is our second month head count. You can see our decrease. So see how in 24 we lost 308, then lost 250, then lost 197. That's why Mr. Butcher, one reason we picked 190, plus it made it a nice round number, 9,900. Number of schools has stayed consistent. Then you can see the county average number of students we had per school. Again, that's an average. You can see we're slowly declining over the 5 years. What we've decreased 27 students on average per school. And then the last line, state average number of students per school. So we're still on average 10 students above the state, but that is that financial efficiency report. I wanted to share it with you.
I want to invite critique of this conclusion I'm drawing here and see if you guys think I'm correct. And I'm looking at these two numbers down here, these two categories at the bottom, a county average number of students per school and a state average number of students per school. It seems to me these two categories were given to us by the state, correct?
All of this is.
Okay.
Yeah.
These are, it would seem to me, a shorthand way of comparing counties in terms of efficiency. Because the more students that you can have per school, the more efficient you are. And one of the things that occurs to me, I would be interested in the math, is that even if we were at that number of 415 students per school, if that was our efficiency number, I would imagine that we would still be looking at serious problems up here. And one of the things that that's telling me is that I don't know if anybody's smart enough to have this intent or not, but at least one of the unintended consequences of what's happening with the state funding formula, it is driving schools to be bigger. People talk about that. It's driving greater efficiencies. In other words, it's requiring us to make decisions to generate efficiencies that are actually probably higher than this 415 right here. That's just an observation.
Well, when we go to build a new school or do whatever, you have to put in a amount of occupancy you're going to have in that school.
Correct.
What are you going to do? And there's my criteria to do that. It won't let you build a new school. We can't.
And the school building authority wants you to be at 85%.
Right.
When you're building a new school.
It used to be 80.
It's 85%.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sorry. I started having you write in those numbers. I didn't talk about the very top part. Those figures, just real quickly, and I think these are self-explanatory, but our over the formula professional personnel, you can see that's just steadily increased. We're at 7.6 million. The local supplement, there are some footnotes here at the bottom about that, but we pay more than the state minimum salary. So you're seeing what that's costing professional personnel, over 200, and then they do the same for service. So they're taking all those numbers, calculating what they believe is 21.8 million that we're in excess of the state funding. And then they're reducing our excess levy call off of that for that support and leaving us with the it was 10 point, I'm looking at the old one, 10.9 difference there. And you can see graphically, we're just trending in the very wrong direction. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I know that's a quick overview of that, but with the year ahead of us and.
Well, I appreciate it because I just wanted everybody to start the conversation in your mind. There's hard decisions to be made. And I think the sooner we all grasp what may be ahead of us, the better and more informed and more intelligent decisions we can make to go forward. I mean, I think you brought up, Ron, that these are things that we got to look at, and so when we go forward, this will, she's asked, and I think very valid point, that we have a personnel work session later on this fall to dig into this a little deeper. And if there's more budget information any of you require or want, you can ask Superintendent, Mr. Butcher can get it for us. That said, I would ask one thing. Charlotte, I hadn't asked, or Dr. I to ask you and Ron, the State Department wants a report from the treasurer, and you and I went to train up a thing, and there's a template, we should do every month,
They
okay?
were going to develop.
But they have done that now, okay?
It is developed.
But there's leeway within it, what we want on and don't and everything. Superintendent asked me if somebody would like to look at that, some of the members, and work with Mr. Butcher to have what we want presented to us. And I was asking if you two would give Mr. Butcher, work with him, look what items you think he should present to us every meeting or every month as far as those financial information, okay? And if you all wouldn't mind doing that, and then you could get with
So
him.
you're talking about the meeting where they said that we should have a financial report at every meeting.
Right.
To keep track of everything.
Right, exactly.
And they were going to develop something.
Yes,
for
ma'am.
Counties to kind of use as a guide to go by.
Right.
Okay.
That's been, but he wants to look at that and make sure it addresses what we as a board want.
Yes.
That's what's important, Scott, what we want. So, and that said, if once it's all said and they bring it to it, Mr. Bedrine, if there's something that Mr. Ford wants or Ms. Smith wants that's not including you two, we can add that. But to give Mr. Butcher, he can't work with more than two of us, or it's the meeting. But he can work with two of you guys, look at that, develop something, and then present it to us. Okay? You know, an objection, I'd like you to do that.
Okay, and he does have the basic template now.
Yeah.
It is my understanding that he has a template, and he asked if I would review that with him, and then I spoke to Mr. Snuffer thinking that would be good if we had board member input. So I'm hopeful that the four of us can sit down and work through that. And then you just said something that I didn't realize. I thought it was a monthly report. It's an every board meeting report.
I think it's what they,
It's monthly. I say every board.
you said
Yes.
every
It was monthly.
I-
Oh,
monthly.
okay. I thought it was,
Sorry.
that's
It
okay.
was, it was monthly and stuff like that.
Correctly.
But what you can do is, and Mr. Bridger want to do it, you divide, you don't have to report everything once a month. You could have part of one meeting, part of the other meeting.
Yes.
But if it's, just the way you do it, keep meeting so long.
And I think, Rick, and please correct me if my memory's going here, the reason that they even suggested that was because of financial problems so many counties are in.
Exactly.
Boards saying we didn't know this
Well-
and then being held accountable.
That just came on, and it's got worse since then. They just had that debacle in Upshur County at that time, where the board didn't know what all was done and spent and everything else. We've had other boards do the same thing. We had the same thing up in Northern Panhandle. They couldn't make the payroll and the board didn't know. And so they said, it's really important from the State Department standpoint, which I agree with them, that boards need to be better informed on the financial basis. Don't wait till it's already out here, like the old saying is the cow's in the road. Let's get you guys up to date so that you're more responsible for it and see what's going on. So, I mean, it's a good concept that day we had that meeting to do it and stuff, but they were pretty adamant on it. We had people from the State Department there, and we had Bowles and Rice both there.
Who did that presentation? Was it
Kim and that little girl, the other one from Bowles and Rice, yeah. But we also had people from the State Department, who's the, what's the,
Mr. Cummings, you're right.
no, what's, Isaiah, whatever, yeah, he was there. He did it, yeah. Yeah. He did it along with the treasurer for Pendleton County, who does a lot of that stuff. Yeah, they were together, showing what they projected that we should be seeing. Okay.
Can I ask the group for some help on some things here with this?
Yeah.
Because I think I'm on.
Yeah.
It seems to me, and it may be somewhat early in the process, either our community doesn't understand these things, we haven't taught them these things, or they don't believe us. Because based on our last board meeting, people are coming to us, and it appears that they would, even our legislators, would seem to think that we have it within our discretionary power. The capacity, the school system has the capacity to not make the hard decisions that would seem to be in front of us.
Very,
And as in all cases, you just think, well, we're going to have to do some education here. We're going to have to say, to teach them these things. And the scope of the problem, when they say, well, we're overstaffed in the board office, or we have too many rules, and and it's almost like no matter what you would say about the types of things, you could say, well, if we fired the whole staff here and had site-based management, it still wouldn't address these numbers, I don't think.
no, it wouldn't.
And the law doesn't permit that.
Right.
So it's I don't know if our community believes this is true or they don't understand it's true. I don't know which one it is.
Ron, and this comes from being old and lots of
I was just
experience.
going
I
to-
think it's both. I don't think there's an understanding. I don't think there's an understanding in the community as a whole, the education community as a whole, the legislative community as a whole. And I'm not faulting them for that because it's very, very complicated stuff to
It is.
understand. Okay. And so they don't have the basic understanding. I don't know if there's enough education out there that would make it simple for the average person that doesn't have to deal with it all the time to really, really understand. I do think there's some mistrust there, which is nothing new. It's always been like that. It's kind of like an us and them scenario. And again, I'm not saying that's current. I'm saying that's just kind of historical. So I don't know the answer. I think it's a very, very complicated thing. I don't know that there's an easy fix to it. And I can tell you personally, you may remember over years, I would try to go through the formula stuff. And I'm not saying I was an expert, I was not, but just very, very basic. But most principals would sit there and their eyes would glaze over because they had no understanding of it.
Right.
And it's just like, that's your problem to deal with. That's not my problem to deal with.
Well,
I don't know the answer.
And I think it's come down to us. I mean, I've been on it a long time too. And I can remember when you were here and we had hearings and so forth and other ones. It's always, well, there's got to be money in there somewhere. You guys are hiding money somewhere. You're doing this. It's only this much money for my school. You could do whatever. And that's the thing. But they don't understand the total concept. And I understand that. When I was on the board, all I was concerned about was Strap Hill. I mean, I didn't give a crap what happened to Woodrow Wilson. To be honest with you, I didn't. But then when you get the whole county involved and you look at the whole formula, it's a whole different game. And until you are at that level, you just never had that feeling or that understanding for it.
Exactly.
Because it's just your vision or your yard that you're looking at, okay?
And David Brooks, God love him, used to say to me all the time, Charlotte, do they think I can go out there and just pluck it off of that tree in the backyard? He used to say that to me all the time, which is kind of true.
Yeah.
The other night, we had one legislator said, Mr. Chairman, you're
Turn your mic on.
more reports. You're receiving $2 million more. That's more than enough to keep MAPSCOT open.
Yeah.
They don't understand it.
Well, I'll tell you what. I was in ICU. I was coming out of anesthesia. I looked at the live stream about halfway thing, and I told Billy Roop, first thing I saw was him. And I said, I went back I told him, give me one drug. I said, give me some more of that stuff we had here because I've heard enough of this stuff. Okay. I said, that's all I can take. So, but I like Billy. We get along good. But I just said that, man, that was more.
Ask about you, would know where you were.
Yeah, I know. That's what he said.
One thing you said, Ms. Smith, you said, well, I don't see where we can cut anymore, where it's not easily seen, and it's not. I've had a few curves thrown at me over the years too, where the first time and who wants to hear the long story, but the first time I was given the professional challenge, I looked at that and I thought, that's unfair. You're crazy. That can't be done. And that was my first reaction. And that's kind of my first reaction to this as well. I share your sentiment. But there's a great educator, Dwight Yoakam. You've probably heard of him.
I got it, buddy.
He said
Guitar and Cadillac. Guitar and Cadillac.
it's hard to see tomorrow when you're stuck on today. You always want to do tomorrow what you did yesterday.
Yeah.
I like that. And I've been thinking about that and wondering about that and saying, okay, we've had declines for the last 70 years that I know of, probably longer. So that's probably not going to change. I don't think it's going to change. I hope it changes, and we work to that end. Our governing people, our legislators, they work to that end. They want to make things better, and I do appreciate that. But I really do think we're going to have to start thinking out of the quadrilateral parallelogram, so to speak. And I started just thinking, and some of these things feel radical. They may be horrible ideas, but we are probably going to have to start thinking outside the box. Mr. Busher said, well, it's a technology refresh year. Well, why is it a refresh year? Is it required? My goodness, I'm starting to read over and over and over again, especially pre-K to 5, that we've really made a mistake societally with the reliance on technology. Jefferson County, I think I heard one of their superintendent, 2 days a week, they're going to no technology days. And start thinking about going back to that idea of classroom set, familiarize, maybe pre-K to 8, just start spending less on technology, because I think it's starting to be a big body of evidence that saying, well, may have made a mistake here. We've gone too far. The other thing, when you start thinking about the configuration of schools, sometimes your problems could be opportunities disguised as problems. You start thinking about some of the work that's going on now, having pre-K to 2 centers, because they're structurally and curricularly aligned very similarly. And if you start thinking about places where you can reconfigure our schools to pre-K to 2 centers, you'll perhaps have a curricular benefit, and perhaps you'll start to generate efficiencies in the number of buildings you need. Take our bigger schools and make them 3 to 5 centers. When Beckley Stratton was constructed, the enrollment was 863. We might be getting close to being able to have one middle school in town. Those are the types of things. I'm not saying those things are all good ideas. As we analyze them and you incorporate the whole system into problem solving, you may say, oh, that was a stinker, and somebody will save us from some of those that might be bad ideas. But my point is, the legislature has always done what the legislature does. We've had declines for the last 70 years, and it seems to me that we will be charged with the task of solving what look to be impossible problems, and they probably aren't. They're just going to be radically different, and that's challenging.
One thing that I've shared with staff here is for a long time, we have been able to have things that were nice to have, maybe positions that were nice to have. And we're not at a place where we can do that right now. It's not the nice to haves, it's the we have to have, whether maybe it's an IEP that is driving that decision for a staff member. We have to have that. But perhaps there are others that are just the nice to haves.
Like you tell my kids, there's wants and there's needs. There's a big difference, okay? There's a big difference. You might want something. That doesn't mean you need it. And then and I'm not saying we're wasting those positions, but it's just we're going to have to, as Ron said, and I've said a long time, especially where transportation is not an issue, we need to look at things where we consolidate services sometimes. I even brought the thing up, and this is really crazy, probably going to think, but look at janitorial service, look at food services, things like that. schools that are right close to each other, boom, boom, boom. Do we need to have that? Or could one school provide the food for a couple schools right around them?
We worked on that in Fayette County. A friend of ours, David C., was proposing that, and the math was easy. It was like, oh yeah, we need to, up on the plateau, we need to cook at Midland Trail
Yeah.
and get food trucks
Yeah.
and take the food.
Right.
And we're already doing some of that in the summers. We're already doing some of that. So there's a lot of things. Well, we did that at Woodrow. We took food down to ACT. So there's a lot of things we're going to have to start thinking about that. I really don't like that. I like going into seeing my cooks every day in the kitchen.
Yeah, sure.
I don't like that. But
Well, I mean, that's what I said. It's hard decisions, and there's no stupid questions. You just have to look at all of them, and some of it will be good, and some of it won't. So, and what we think maybe will be the best thing may not be the best thing when we get done with it.
yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on then to the self-appraisal. What we looked at is we wanted to go through. There's some items on there that some members didn't think were as strong as they should be. So I'll let Dr. Starcher talk about this, but ways we can improve those so that everybody's happy with the input. First thing is we need to understand this survey is not our survey. The State Department made this survey. I think it's kind of ambiguous to start with, okay? I don't like the way they ask their questions. I don't know that they get the results that they think out of this thing. Some of the things we talked about was board, not objectives, goals, board goals, right?
So what I did, and if you want to look at it differently, that's fine. But I went through and I was just trying to look at where we had any disagree, because I thought that would be a good point or a good place to start. So number 14 is the first item that had a disagree. So the item is our board has specific measurable goals, frequently monitors progress toward meeting them, and makes changes as needed. So I had a conversation, I can't remember if it was with Mr. Ford or Mr. Snuffer in the past about goals, board goals, and that I know we have our superintendent goals, we have our strategic plan goals, which strategic plan goals, academics, behavior, we report on those throughout the year. But in terms of board goals, we don't have those. So I'm not sure if this board would like to have its own goals. One thing I did do, I've looked at all 54 school websites, district websites, I'm sorry. I did find 4 counties that have goals. Now, one of those counties has them from 21-22, so they're not current. But 4 of them have goals written as board goals. I have copies of those if you would like to just look at them, but the other 51 counties, which that includes us, did not have established board goals. So I don't know how you'd like to proceed with that.
Well, I guess my thing is the State Department says, this thing about, board goals. I don't know how a board goal is different from the school. I don't know how our goal could be different than what the whole system's goal is. If we have a different goal than what they do, I don't know.
Well, I would think that, thinking that any goal in the system of any board of first goal should be student achievement, should
Right.
it not?
Right. And that's the
No.
same.
No,
Ron says no.
Safety.
no.
Why do you think it should be, Ron?
Safety,
Safety.
supervision.
Safety.
Well,
Yeah, safety is
okay,
number one
I'll-
for everybody. I was gonna say
I'll put that in
everything, but
there,
yeah.
too. Safety,
Yeah.
student achievement, fiscal responsibility.
You're right.
I mean,
How
if someone asked me, I could probably mouth off things, but
Yeah.
I don't know that would
Yeah.
be
what's
exactly what the goals were.
what's our county's goal? What
You mean the strategic plan goals? One deals with academics. One dealt with behavior. Remember when we would report out on PBIS, the decrease in suspension data? That was a goal. One goal supports. I don't exactly know how it's written, but supports the teachers providing opportunities for their growth, and The other one focuses on attendance. I did, because it talks about specific measurable goals, frequently monitoring progress. There is one county that had SMART goals for the board, only one. But I can tell you what those are. Actually, I have a copy if you'd like to look at them.
I would.
Okay. Two. And then, I'm sorry. And then, so the last, flip to page 4, that's where you would see,
Go that way, okay.
yeah, I just divided it. Page 4 starts, I'm not going to identify the counties, but this particular county had, I think it's 5 or 6. Let me look. 1, 2, 6 goals. So, like the first one was about board member professional development. And the goal, well, what they wanted to accomplish, ensure all board members complete 12 hours of annual training that promotes continued education and governance, school finance, and so on. The second one was fiscal stewardship. The third one was student achievement and performance. The fourth one was a policy related to developing a conflict of interest policy. It's just a policy. Community and schools goal, increasing opportunities for meaningful communication between the board and community. And then superintendent, strengthen board superintendent relations by referring day-to-day operational concerns to superintendent and so forth. This is the only county that had SMART goals written. So I share that. Then you'll see the third page, those goals are from 21-22 for that particular county. And then the second page, you'll see goal 1, 3, and 4, goals 1, 3, and 4 start with support the superintendent of X county by doing whatever, and whichever one it is. And I'm assuming the superintendent's goals may align with those.
Yes, yeah.
But I don't have the superintendent goals, but I'm assuming that they align with goals 1, 3, and 4. And then you have the last county on top there, the first page. These are from 24-25. And I'm going to assume as I read these that these are probably connected in some way to the superintendent's goals, but I don't know. So these are the only samples I could find for counties. I'm certainly open if you want to write goals have board goals, or we can work together and develop the superintendent goals that would, if there's something that's not in those that you would like to have in them, it's just whatever you would like, but I'd like to be able to work on this so that we don't have a disagree.
Right.
Well, I don't mind saying I'm the one that Mark disagree because I was not aware that we had any goals. I feel like we need to have them, otherwise this question wouldn't be here. I mean, even if they're just very
Right.
broad, like safe schools, teacher, student achievement, and things like that, but I feel like we need to come up with 2 or 3.
Ms. Smith, would you and Mr. Ford be willing to work with the superintendent to come up with a set of goals for us and then present that back to the board and let us look at it? Would you be willing to do that?
I'm fine with it if Larry is.
So just so I'm clear, we are going to have a set of board goals.
Right.
And then I would assume the board goals will align with the superintendent
Right,
goals,
yes.
will align with the strategic plan to
Yes.
an extent.
It all needs to line up, but there needs to be a way to do it. Ours doesn't have to be specific. Actually, it's more general maybe
Okay.
than theirs. Like Charlotte said, academic achievement, safety, but it needs to be a little bit measurable. It needs to be, we want to progress, in doing those. So look at that.
And I'll go ahead and say this to Marshall Larry. I think it definitely should be some kind of alignment with superintendent goals. I think it should align more with the strategic plan of the county.
That's what I'm saying.
Because that's where,
Yeah.
and I will say this, personally, maybe we need to be more aware of exactly what's in the strategic plan and how that's done.
Right.
Because I don't know that we've had, or maybe I missed it or something, like specific, here's what our strategic plan, we used to do that.
We did that at the beginning of this year because if I remember correctly, there was a disagree here last year. And when I saw that, I thought, okay, this is about the strategic plan. So I know we presented the goals this year. And then I know like when we did our PBIS, that was reporting, I think it's goal 3. So we've tried to connect much of our reports, not all. I mean, the academic reports, we have to do that once a month, but like when we would do a PBIS report, it was connecting to goal 3. So we did that this year, but then there's still a disagree. So I just want to do better with that.
Well, I think it'd be a good input with the two of those to work with you or some
Okay.
staff,
No, it's fine.
and we'll come up with a board goals
Okay.
that we'll have, then we can take those and bring them before the board and actually adopt them as a board.
That-
Put them on a
that
list,
sounds
we
good to me.
adopt these as our goals, and those are something,
I've not done that.
yeah, and we've never done that. And once you adopt them, then you review them on a yearly basis to see what you need to change or update.
Sure. So that's Miss Smith and Mr. Ford. I will get with both of you to schedule a time that we can get together. Now, if we really just want them more focused with the strategic plan, then that works. I know my superintendent goals have to be developed, so I just want to make sure we get all the timelines
Yeah,
together there. Okay.
Yeah, like Charlotte said, or Dr. Hart said, I don't think it needs to tie so closely with the superintendent's goals as it does the county's goals.
I'm fine with that. I just wanted to
Yeah.
be clear.
Of course, there's gonna be some.
Yeah, you gotta be a crossover.
See those as separate, distinct,
Yeah, right.
maybe I'm wrong.
Well, it's because that's one person, that's one person. It's, in the whole county is a lot of different things to me, but that's,
The reason I mentioned that, like the one county, 3 of them support the superintendent of the county school system. I just didn't know
Yeah.
how you would like to have them developed. So I'm clear, and I'll get a message to you too.
Okay.
Thank you.
In the interest, go ahead.
Go ahead, I'm sorry, Mark.
In the interest of efficiency with your time, I want to share something. I've really wanted to do this the very first meeting. This is a perfect time to share what I wanted to share. One of my favorite quotes is this one: "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." Culture eats strategy for breakfast. So whenever the higher I was up in the hierarchy, I would focus more on culture and less on strategy. And it kind of gets to what you were talking, well, you and I've been talking about specifics. But I always wanted to give people a tight, concise, precise lighthouse, if you will, that could govern as much of their day-to-day actions as possible. So when I became a board member, one of the things I thought about was what exactly would I like to get done at the end of 4 years? And I came up with 3 categories. One of them is to meet student needs, which is pretty broad. But I put safety and supervision number 1, cognitive number 2, what we teach and how we teach it, and affective needs, social, emotional wellness. So the first thing I wanted to do was be a part of a team that was meeting student needs in those 3 areas. The second thing I wanted to be a part of is creating a culture of servant leadership. Most of what I've learned about servant leadership, I've learned at church and at school. So I'm not saying that there's not a lot of great servant leaders in the school system. And typically me firsters stick out like a sore thumb. But I want to create that culture of servant leadership. And then the third thing goes to what we were working on at the beginning, of fiscal and regulatory compliance. So those were the three broad categories: meet student needs, servant leadership, compliance. And for me personally, when we come back together and say, hey, here are our goals, and not that everybody has to believe the way I believe, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying in the interest of efficiency, I want you to know where my head's at. in what we seek to do well on purpose. And having worked with everybody for many decades now, I would imagine, I don't imagine, I know that your character, and I know that you guys are pretty much wired the same way. I just like to be precise in stating it.
Good deal.
Okay, the next item is number 18. Again, I'm just focused on.
Right, I understand. You want to, yeah, we want to make sure we address those, yeah.
If you want me to stop it at the other item. Number 18, our board has established a schedule for reviewing, I'm sorry. Number 18, our board has established a schedule for reviewing policies for relevance and alignment with state policy and West Virginia code. So at present, our staff keeps apprised of changes in law, changes in state policy, and then we recommend changes to this board. We do not have a schedule that Section A will be reviewed this year, Section B next year, Section C the following year. So if this board would like to have something like that, just let me know. We could review each section. Now, that's not going to stop other policies
No, it
from needing to
won't.
be revised, potentially. So I'm not sure what you would like to see.
Back years ago, I think Sean was here, we had, was it Neola? Is that the name of the group? They came in and did like reviews of policies for
We
board.
never use Neola.
Huh?
Neola does a lot of counties, but we
Well, you didn't use them, I say, but they were out there trying to get us to use them. When that's what I was bringing around.
we redid ours, Bowles Rice redid ours.
Yeah, Bowles Rice did our policies on ours, but Neil did it. So other boards did it. So, but it's such our policy is so vast. I don't know. You can't, I don't know, do on a regular basis as much as a yearly basis go in and do them. I mean, review. I mean, if you tried to do them every month, it would just kill you. You know what I'm saying? So you would have to be something like what we did there. We actually hired Bowles Rice, if I remember right, to go in and redo it. And they did a bunch of counties. They didn't just do us. They did a bunch of counties to overview our policies and stuff and sections and stuff. I don't know what the correct answer is there, but I know I'd say most people on the board here have a general idea of the policies, but to really look at that book and know what the policies are, it's probably not thing. It's hard. You got a law book, it's this big, and then you got our policy book on top of that, and it's just crazy.
Okay, I think I read that differently.
Okay.
Then I thought this was saying, and it is the board, but the school system has a schedule for reviewing policies. And we could review each section and let you know the resultant proposed revisions. But there are some sections have 25 policies
Right.
in the section. So it's not an easy task,
No,
but
it just says the board establishes a schedule for reviewing policies.
correct.
So, that means every so often that we're going to say, on a yearly basis, I don't know, maybe whatever policies or after, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure what that schedule needs to be. And I don't know that it needs to be very tight, it can be loose, but the state, according to state code or whatever it says here, supposed to have something.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. What we're doing now is reviewing on an as-needed basis. Like when there are changes with the state law or state code or something, and the board has to develop a policy or be in line with or change a policy.
That is
That's
correct.
what they're reviewed.
Right. So a few years ago, we reviewed the policies. We sat in here, directors took certain policies based on their area and they reviewed the policies. And so as of then, I feel like we did a pretty comprehensive review of our policies. And from that, directors would say, we need to revise this, we need to revise that, and we brought those to you. And to what you just said, from there, it was monitor state law, changes in state code, changes in state policy, and then, or perhaps it's just changes to what we need here, like our virtual policy, for instance. That's changed a little bit over the last couple of years. So it can also result from, or changes can also result from what we see needing to change.
There's been a couple come from us that you said, would you like to have a policy or something on it? You know, since I've been on the board,
Yeah.
we developed board policies that came from the board.
Right. So I don't know what you would like to see here, but there's a disagree, and I'd like to
Yeah.
move the green to at least the red, pinkish color.
I have some strong thoughts on this that I don't think we should spend a lot of time on it, is my first thought.
Yep.
Again, I'm open to persuasion. One of the questions I've heard is the squeeze worth the juice. The knowledge base to be able to review those three documents, if you think about alignment between policy, state policy, and West Virginia code, and the vast quantity, the knowledge base is formidable. And then the time to do it is formidable, to really be thorough. Our policy seems to be holding up well under the day-to-day scrutiny of implementation and challenge. They seem to be holding up well. It also could be, given the subjective assessment of political climate, we might be facing dramatic structural change in code, in education, and we may be working on compliance with a structure that won't exist in 5 years.
Yeah.
And unless there's and that's not to say it's perfect, it can't be perfect, but unless there is some systemic, repeated issue with the functioning of our policies, I would suggest we would not be well served to charge the staff with taking on an intensive review.
Only thing I would say is, since it's on an item here, and I don't want to so much is, and I don't agree with these items, but maybe, I don't know if the state, we can take items out of our evaluation, but that we would establish that the board would review their policies at the end of each, year? When's the law change? Usually July 1, right?
It can be.
That's why I said legislature, yeah.
So what I could do, if this is good, we could,
Because it says
I'm
review.
thinking out loud here, okay? So we have our, the legislative changes.
Mhm.
So we could report on each
Legislative,
bill, if
Right.
you will, and say, no changes to policy,
right.
existing policy
It
needed.
says,
And then,
relevance and alignment with state code. So what we could do is just say, we're establishing at least once a year, which you do, when the legislature session comes out, you look at, go to, the superintendents all go to usually a Bowles Rice session and go over everything and what's changed and stuff, that would be reported back to the board that you've done that. That we
okay, I can do that.
that's pretty, doesn't cause a lot of extra work for anybody. It's something you're already doing. Just you report to the board you did it.
There's one other piece if you want to add it to it. Each month, throughout the year, the State Board of Education, which they're only meeting every other month now, but every other month then, the state board will have policies that are approved. So we could add that in, policy 2419 was approved November 2nd, 2026. And there are no changes necessary for board policy.
Sounds good.
That sounds good to me too. Yeah, that's
Legislative
And the state?
state board. Yeah.
Policy.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me make that note so I don't forget.
Yeah.
I certainly don't see paying Bowles Rice or somebody else to come in and do
No,
all that.
no. Where's my, that's it's my glasses case. Sorry about that, buddy.
Really flexible enough to get us.
Yeah, you did good, but he's riding that bicycle.
Okay, I believe that we can do that. Okay, number 21, the relationship between the board and the superintendent is one of mutual respect, open communication, trust, and confidence. This is the the worst item we had with 2 disagreements. So I'd like to work on that.
Yeah.
Obviously, with communication, we have to be careful. This board is aware we had a FOIA of all of our communications last year regarding a particular matter. So we have to be extremely careful how we communicate. Plus, we can't communicate we're not supposed to communicate outside of board meetings.
Well, that was
Deliberate on it. So I'm just curious
Yeah.
what we'd like to do there.
at the President's Retreat, which I did virtually. One of the big things about it was being careful on open meetings law and violations of that, and how we have went from 2 guys or 3 guys meeting at a coffee shop to 3 guys texting each other on what they're going to discuss or what they're going to vote on something. Okay, things have changed, and that's still the same violation. And so I guess it's hard for the superintendent, and they were touching on one thing on, to communicate with the board, all of us, if it means. But so you have to be careful that if you have a concern, like when I was concerned, he can go to superintendent, they can discuss that. But for her to turn around and send that to all 5 of us, we're in trouble. It's if it's an issue that will ever come up for a vote, that's all. That's the thing. That's the thing.
Fine line there is what you're saying.
Yes, there is. It's a very fine line, and that's what you get into. And it's according to Howard Super and to what's going on the board. Sometimes they go one way, the ethics board, and some they go the other way. They kind of confuse the situation a little bit themselves because stuff they let go and not.
In your president's, in your president's retreat that you did virtually, what did they tell you could happen and couldn't happen?
They just said be real careful. Don't do, what they, how do you say, how don't do anything that you don't feel like, that you're not comfortable with being on the front page of the paper.
Thing.
In other words, don't do an issue or do something and someone says, because they can forward you that stuff and whatever and say, here, look here, they were discussing putting a new football field down at Park Middle School, and it shows all 4 of them decided they're going to vote on it, and just waiting to get the issue. They said, well, I've talked to the superintendent, she's going to put that on there, we'll get that done. Well, guess what? Somebody doesn't want that field. They come and say, well, they predetermined that. They discussed that ahead of time. So even, the boards have approved those things, have to back off their approvals, and they have a violation of the open meetings law. I mean, that's kind of a simple thing, but that's the basis of it.
I know one thing in our trainings, like personnel, for instance, if we have a personnel hearing coming up, maybe it's an employee discipline matter or personnel season, we've been told, you have to say very little because anything you say can be construed or looked at as providing information outside of that personnel hearing. That we have to be very cautious with what we say, even verbally. I mean, not just like written, but verbally as well. That's something that's really been stressed for us.
Right.
But I know when we received that FOIA for your board member communication, and some of that was not turned over because our attorneys had a reason for it. It's live streamed, so I won't say, but the attorney said you have to be extremely cautious what you share as a superintendent with board members because you can face an open meetings violation.
Well, and that was one of the things they used an example of another county, and Howard's always got these different cases, so and so. I think one of them was from Ritchie County or whatever, but he was saying that, we're the jury for any of these things when a person comes before us.
Mhm.
So there's really strict things about us deliberating that beforehand. And this one board member who went out and said he went out to the school and he interviewed the other teachers and stuff like that, want to get the perspective on what happened. Well, then when it came to the thing, he'd already made his decision, already these own little investigation thing, which was way off base. And just be real careful with that stuff, because you're supposed to we're all supposed to make a decision on base what's presented to us that day. If you knew something else, okay, but that's what we're doing. It's like we're the jury. So you have to really weigh that real carefully. So I
don't think this board has ever had trouble with, for years that I can remember. We did have one board member at one point that was a little bad for it, but like going out to the schools and
Right,
talking to
right,
people and
right.
soliciting their opinion.
Yes, ma'am.
And promising this, and promising that. I mean, we did have one, maybe two over all the course of the years. But I don't think this board's ever done that, got involved.
We
in things
haven't.
like
We've
that.
been. I think this board's been very disciplined on that. Very good. And for a thing, I don't think this board's ever knowledgeable consciously violated the open meetings law. We've tried to be very strict on that and stuff. I mean, we even asked, what was it? We'd asked Howard Super on something. He told us we had to make a regular meeting. It was something, just recently, we were training, there was something. But anyway, you can do it in a meeting. I mean, if there's something we want to discuss, just like we can have a meeting. We just can't do it at the coffee shop. Okay, we can have a meeting because it has to be, and now it has to be live streamed, which adds another, I don't know, it's an obstacle, but it's a new area of accountability that we have to be aware of, So I wanted to put on there, just board members speak up. I know I'm going to speak for you. What other communications or ways do you want the superintendent to communicate with the board?
As I look at this question, it's actually a pretty deep question. It's talking about our relationships with one another. And the only thing I thought that, as I thought about this, that I could add is I want to make sure everybody in here knows that I have a lot of confidence in everybody sitting around this table. I've been with all of you to know your character. I've seen pretty much all of you under pressure. I've watched you default to student needs. And I have a high degree of confidence and trust in the people sitting around this table. So were I being charged to ask this question, which I wasn't, I would have been one of those like, oh yeah, this is good. I'm comfortable with this group. I feel like this is, when I outlined those three things that I wanted to get done, I already know beyond any shadow of any doubt, based on our many years of interaction, yeah, they're with me on this. So that's the one thing I want to contribute to this discussion. That's all five people here.
I guess. Okay. Well, Charlotte's well aware of this. She's been around a while. Not the first time around the block. It's not her first lap around the block, but you go around West Virginia and there's everything from A to Z. But Raleigh County has been ultimately blessed in all my years of service of having a board that for 99% of the time gets along, works together, it takes those three items that you just said, puts those as our priorities: students first, achievement, safety, all those things, and don't have the grandstanding and the things that you do in some boards. I mean, some board meetings, if you want entertainment, go look at their live stream on a night. It's unreal. So, but that's the reason we want to make sure we're here. If we have a problem, we want to address it. And I'll let, if you, one of those, then talk to the superintendent. If there's something you want else to do, then let's do it and so we're stronger in the future. Okay.
The unity around the mission and the goals that you all are working on, having that clear lighthouse, in my mind, that's what supports this Because once we have unity around that, and we're all looking at the same thing, instead of personalities or insecurities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that's what makes this, I think it drives this one. It's related to this.
The last one you had there was what, goals and establishment of communication with all stakeholders, is that it?
The last one was 23, but I think that'll be connected to the establishment of
I
the
was gonna say, once
goals.
you get the goal established, I thought I should take care of that
I mean, I
one.
would think so.
Because, I mean, stakeholders, who are they talking?
I assume when people talk about stakeholders, that's your large
Community, isn't it?
community. I mean,
That's
it's
what I-
everyone.
that's what I see.
Your
I
school
see
staff, your
As the voters,
community.
the citizens.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
They have a stake in our success.
right.
stake in
That's
our-
why, that's what I,
So I would think that disagree would go away once we would have the goals established and shared.
yeah,
And I believe that was the only other one.
yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Um,
Well, I appreciate everybody today. We've got a couple, I think we got a couple really good things. Excited to see what Charlotte and Ron come up working with Mr. Butcher on our financial thing. And also with Martian and Mr. Ford there, working on our goals, that we actually have some goals now. And that's probably something we should have had before maybe. And it's kind of crazy. I mean, we're not, if there's 55 counties and only 4 of them have them, we're surely not a lot of people let that go under the table there and to do it. Because I think we always, on goals, like Ron kind of said, I think we kind of just assume that we know what they are. I mean, like Shirley said, well, obvious it's going to be student achievement. And Ron says, no, that's obvious, it's going to be safety. Well, what I'm saying,
Yeah,
we assume those things. So we say, well, we're going to go. We already know that. It's pretty basic. But once you put it in writing, it gives everybody there something to look for on that and stuff. Okay. If nothing else, then nothing on the agenda. We do have a meeting tomorrow, fun times at 5:30. We may have some visitors again, so they're always welcome. And hopefully the legislature's in interim, so they'll have something else to do with their time, so come and tell us how to run our business. And maybe we should go to theirs and tell them how to run theirs. So I don't know. Let's do it. So that's all I've got. This meeting's adjourned.